welcome into the Zig Zone. Happy Sunday. BG Falcon Media's show covering everything going on in the world of Falcon athletics. The Zig Zone, as always, is a WBGU 88.1 FM, BG Falcon Media, and Falcon Media Sports Network production. And I'm your host, Holden Ruck, here joined by three analysts from Falcon Media Sports Network. First off, Henry Costco. How are we doing, Henry?
Doing pretty good. Both seasons concluded for men's and women's soccer this week. Both of them ended on losses, but maybe one of them a more successful loss than the other, so we'll talk all about that.
Successful loss. It's a sad but accurate term there. Andrew Smith. How are we doing, Andrew?
Doing good, Holden. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. You know what? People don't ask me as often, but you remember. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We got evidence. And first time back for this year in the absence of Ben Korak, Nathan Burkett. Good to have you here, buddy. How you doing?
It's great to be here. Can't wait to talk about BG hockey and all the other sports.
Yeah, I was talking about it before the show, but today is what I like to call our Equinox show because we have 7 sports in action now, 2 basketballs, 2 soccers, volleyball, football, and hockey. And I shouldn't say in action because 2 of them have now ended their seasons. However, still a ton to talk about, so we're going to step away for station identification, but after that we're going to get right into the action talking about football, who had a bit of a disappointing end to their hopes at bowl contention. We'll talk about that more after this. You're still listening to the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
Nice.
Welcome back here. You're listening to the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM. I'm Holden Ruck once again, joined by Henry Costco, Andrew Smith, and Nathan Burkett, who I might have caught off guard by pressing those buttons quick, but that's okay. We're going to get into the football conversation right away. The BG football team ended their hopes at bowl eligibility, breaking what was a 3-year streak, longest in a row for a while for the Falcons since the last time they were MAC contenders, winning in 2013 and 2015. But the Falcons traveled to Ypsilanti, Michigan to take on the Eastern Michigan Eagles and fell 21-27 in, to their credit, what looked like a much more competitive game than either of the home contests we've seen in the past month. Thoughts, just opening thoughts, guys?
There was some good moments. The offense looked better than it had in the previous 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And against a better defense than was in Kent State. It just wasn't there for the whole game. The defense also didn't really hold up their end of the bargain very often, especially late in the game. And, the best thing, honestly, in this game for Bowling Green fans was both teams' uniforms looked cool. So take with that what you will.
You know, to that note, not to sidebar too far, but it is hard to appreciate a good uniform matchup when you're on that gray field. I know Sean Connolly got into it a little bit a couple weeks ago. I'm all for the Boise. I can even stomach the Coastal Carolina, the teal. I don't hate it. The gray on TV just doesn't work. Something about it looks.
I think
wrong.
Michigan
if you've ever seen it in person, it looks cool in person.
No, I believe that it looks cool in person, but I feel like I'm watching an edit of 1960s NFL highlights because the field's gray, and then I'm like, wait, the uniforms are in color. Something's wrong here.
Guys, I don't know if you're aware, but grass is green.
Grass is green. Many people are saying this.
I don't understand why the field has to be gray.
I don't understand why it has to be green.
Yeah, their colors are green. You can't just make the field.
You can. Michigan State does it.
Their field's green. They're blue on blue.
No, I mean I was saying that sarcastically.
Controversial. I like the gray field on TV. Like, it's ugly. Don't get me wrong, but it's so ugly that's kind of cool.
I think it's fine when they wear green, but when they wear their gray uniforms, they like blend into the field.
It's like the kick return where he lays on the ground and then gets up. You've seen that clip.
Yeah,
but about the game, I mean, the offense looked better than it had. I think some people maybe expected more in the wake of the firing of Travis Partridge prior to the game. To be honest, I didn't personally expect to see a night and day difference. I think we did see some improvements in performance from some of the ones we've seen against Central Michigan and in that Buffalo game. But at the same time, we saw some offense in the loss on the road against Kent. Kind of seeing the same thing here. And if you look at the passing attempts, the passing yardage, I mean, a turnover through the air, still nothing going in the passing game, and it does feel very similar to the offenses that we've been rightfully complaining or vocal about this season. I think the bright spot on the offense is the emergence of Austin Dendy, who, despite the start of the year being very buried on this depth chart, putting up really solid numbers against a multitude of fronts.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He was definitely the bright spot for maybe the team as a whole in the game. 21 attempts, 113 yards, total 2 touchdowns, and as long as that 19-yard carry, an average 5.5 yards per carry. So another good game for him. But I didn't think Hunter Najm looked bad. I thought he did good for the situation that he was in, and I thought, comparatively to what we saw last week in the past couple of weeks, I think that was the best offensive performance we've seen from a quarterback, maybe outside of what we saw from Baron May against Kent State. So
yeah, and again, it wasn't particularly flashy, but it did feel like there was a spark. There was a pick, but the times he did throw looked fairly decisive. It's almost crazy to say when you look at the stat line. I think he had 97 passing yards. You can correct me on that where I'm wrong. 129 passing yards, 11 for 15, 1 touchdown and a pick. So not that bad. There's just only 15 attempts to begin with. Is not going to make anybody's numbers look that pretty. But even towards the end, when kind of flushed in the pocket, Najm scrambled at times. Kept it alive, especially on the final possession after Eastern kicked a field goal to stretch their lead from 3 to 6. Forcing the need for a Bowling Green touchdown late, which obviously inevitably iced the game. But up until the end of the game, Najm was still attempting to make plays, finding a guy on the perimeter to get out of bounds, going down inbounds, but making plays with his legs. So the chances were there. I think at the end of the day for Bowling Green, kind of sucks to see losing that way to Eastern Michigan. Chances at a bowl game are out the window. But you're not rolling over and just letting the season end. And I don't like moral victories. I do think that counts for something. I don't know.
Except that you don't go to a bowl game.
Yeah.
But I do get what you're saying.
But I do think there's momentum. I think the last 2 games here, a few things, in particular offensively, whether the play calling turns into something that we'd like to see or not, which I still don't think it was there. You've got clearly a young runner in Austin Dendy. Who I did think it was better. I just think there were some of the same woes. But Austin Dendy, a redshirt freshman, 6'1", 225, that's big for a running back. Big and tall. Yeah. A strong runner like that who's young, presumably going to be returning to the program next year. A quarterback who's also a freshman, young, only got his first start against Eastern Michigan. I think there's a lot of things you can look at in this one and think, okay, looking down these last 2 games, you're playing Akron at home, you're playing UMass in Massachusetts, arguably still 2 of the worst teams you play in your schedule, 2 out of the bottom 4 probably with Kent and Eastern. And I know you lost those games to Kent and Eastern, but even so, these are comparable teams to those 2 teams that you played close on the road. You get one of them at home, and the other one's UMass, who's arguably the worst team in the country. Yeah,
I think the team's just at a position where, the season's over for them. You just have to kind of look at the positives that we're going to see over the last 2 games, which is I think we'll probably see Hunter Najm play the entirety of the last 2 games, assuming he's healthy.
And I think he absolutely should.
He should. He deserves it.
He earns that right very clearly.
And I'm excited to see what he can do in those 2 games and how much he can improve as a player, because that's this team's going to be looking for a quarterback next year. Obviously, I think Lucian is probably going to be the number 1 choice going in, but it's wide open if Hunter ends up having a good couple games. There's plenty to play for him in the offense.
And to be honest, in the offseason, when before Drew Pine transferred, and I expected Lucian to be potentially the front runner to be starting this year. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, the carryover year to year certainly helps. But for a guy who's a holdover of a different coaching staff here, I don't think there's anything guaranteed. And it's definitely, health is a big question. I think Drew Pine has eligibility for next year still. There's a question mark there. Do they go back to Drew Pine? They seemed to want to this season when he was healthier, and we saw how that went the last game he played returning from injury. So there's more questions than there is answers, and I think that is kind of just emblematic of teams that are not winning. But at the same time, I do think going into the offseason, going into Coach George's first actual, offseason. He had an abbreviated offseason. Again, let's remember he got hired in March. And so going into an offseason, I think morale-wise, 5 wins feels a little better than 3. 1 short of bowl eligibility sounds a little better than 9 losses.
Yeah, and I mean,
if you're the Falcons,
Yeah.
if you're on the recruiting trail, which obviously they need to be.
You also can't lose to these teams because you're one absolutely just like feel good wins, but if you lose to UMass, they're still winless, right? They're still winless.
UMass is
like if you lose to UMass, like that's embarrassing, and then you get called into questions. Okay, is Eddie George the guy?
They just lost 44-10 to Akron.
For reference,
like
UMass is 0-9. With losses to mediocre teams along the way, blown out by Kent State 6-42. They played Buffalo surprisingly close, actually 21-28. Akron beat them 44-10.
Yeah, like if you go in and you lose that game to UMass, then I feel like you really need to be like, okay, is Eddie George the guy?
Again,
because they're being beat up on by every single team.
And so here's the thing that I point to in that vein, because I do feel that sentiment. My only counter is, number one, whether it's a guy recruited by a D1 program or not, a 4th-string quarterback is usually not buried on the depth chart if he's starting caliber yet. That's usually
fair.
True. Again, the abbreviated offseason, I think these last 2 games, you kind of throw out the rest of the season. You want to see them, use whatever continuity they have. I mean, clearly ride the hot hand of Austin Dendy. I think Najim's your guy for these last 2 games. See what you have in him next year, especially because, whether it's going to be like a Lucian or even Drew Pine or Hunter Najim going into next year, you have to, I think you got to go into this offseason knowing what you have in that room and knowing what you need to do. Are you going to bring in another transfer, the Connor Bazelak type, the Drew Pine type?
Are you going to try to recruit
Are you going to try to just recruit and develop?
Yeah.
I mean, in this era, I think it's hard to say. It can kind of go either way. If you look at the University of Oregon, they're going to bring a guy in usually, and then he's going to play, and then the next guy's going to come in. That's kind of what they've been doing, Dylan Gabriel, Bo Nix, etc. I don't know how sustainable that is at this level when you're not getting
got the money for
that top-notch talent. But at the end of the day, you just need to figure out what you've got for next year and not end on a negative note, because I think this off-season only gets a lot noisier if they lose either of these last 2 games, especially the one to UMass. If they lose to Akron, I think it's still going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths, home finale.
It's a rare... I feel like there's so many stories of coaches coming in and completely turning a program around that I feel like within their first season that we immediately assume that, that should be how it goes. You should be doing that every single time. And it's not like Eddie George is turning BG football around. BG football isn't necessarily struggling to begin with, but you need to give him a little bit of time to get his players in the locker room, because he's still working with Loeffler's
holdover
team.
scraps.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Because you look at the guys who left or graduated before Loeffler even moved to the Eagles. Yeah. I mean, you were already working with a shell of a roster if he stayed. Mm-hmm. You get quarterback movement after he leaves. Yeah. Brings up more questions and answers. Now you got people looking
at I think people are going to look at coming to BG more favorably because Eddie George is here, and I think that in my heart of hearts, I really do feel like Eddie just seems like a kind of guy that is going to be good at recruiting because he just has that kind of, I don't know, he just has a very good vibe to him.
He's passionate and personable,
exactly.
And I feel like any interactions with him, I mean, I feel like people kind of pick that up.
And I also think it's really cool how, I know he's obviously not, sticking around at a lot of events, but he's showing face at a lot of events.
Oh yeah, I saw him with the student section where we always saw Scott Loeffler for volleyball.
Yeah, and it's not he doesn't have to do any of that.
No,
especially he's Eddie George,
busy guy.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. He's not only is he famous, his wife is as well. He's got stuff to do, and he's still making time to go do that thing. So I do think he's a very personable guy who's going to be good at recruiting. He just needs an opportunity to actually fully do that with a full off season.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that the full offseason is going to be a real teller. And, Akron, UMass, those 2 games in front of you. You look at the close results that you got with Eastern and Kent. Personally, I think they win both of them. I think they win 2 games going into the offseason here, finish at 5.
Fingers crossed.
The biggest thing, if you look at the preseason projection, even after the hiring of Eddie George, I don't recall, it was either 4.5 or 5.5 was the line for Bowling Green wins. So, I mean,
Yeah.
It's not
I feel like
that
once we
far
beat Toledo,
outside of
it got hyped
expectations. And more importantly, you have those moments. And I think, like, you know, in the MACs, you know, there's going to be ups and downs. And I feel like pretty much every program encounters those. Even Toledo will be riding high, and then they'll lose like 3 straight games they shouldn't lose, and now they're out of title contention.
They lost
to
to
Bowling
us.
Green. But those moments are important. And in year one, to come in and win that game against Liberty on homecoming and win that game against Toledo, this team, with the way they've performed against Kent State, against Central Michigan, against Buffalo, especially those Central and Buffalo games, that team doesn't win that Toledo game without being well coached. Like, a meltdown on its own is not enough to erase that deficit. I think that the proof is in the pudding right there. That tells you that, you know, the right things are in place, and it just takes time. And just like we've given, you know, other coaches who have gotten here recently, you know, Chris Fox is a great example that we'll talk about. You know, you got to give him his grace, give him his time to get settled in, get some things figured out, institute his own ideas and his players. Again, you know, we came up a little short. We'll talk about that more. But we saw how that went. And, you know, I think is a coach in the MAC who should be very, very well respected if he wasn't already. And I think Eddie George, long story short, is well on his way to that. It's just, you know, it's not going to happen in year one, especially not with the, poor injury luck. We're not even talking about defensive injuries. You know, just the quarterback room alone is pretty crippling to most teams. So
that's why I feel like, you know, it's a series of kind of unfortunate events for them in terms of the injuries that they've had, especially at the quarterback position. That's always the toughest spot.
Oh yeah,
you know, especially to a player that was as much of a leader as Drew Pine was. So, you know, and this team got the results in those games when they were pretty much fully healthy, in those games that, you know, they had things going their way. And I mean, you mentioned that was the proof that, you know, there is something there for sure, and it hasn't been this way the whole year.
Absolutely. We'll I think they win the last 2, but we'll just, you know, you'll have to keep up and see what the Falcons can do down the stretch here. They will conclude their home slate not this Tuesday, but a week from this Tuesday, November 18th, for their one MACtion home game of the year, when they take on the Akron Zips at home at Perry Stadium, 7 p.m. November 18th. Falcon Media Sports Network will, as always, have coverage of that one. You can check out bgfalconmedia.com for written content and stay up to date with BG Falcon Media on socials, and at BG_FMSN on X for all updates for broadcasts, written content, etc. That's going to do it for football. You know, not a lot left there. Unfortunate for them to miss a bowl game, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. You know, happens for them. They'll keep building. We're going to talk about women's basketball next. First basketball conversation of the year on this show, and ironically, all of our beats are busy covering basketball right now. Yeah. So shout out to our
we know
extensive
so
beat team. But the women's basketball team had an interesting matchup. They got kind of trampled, to be honest. That's how I wrote it when I wrote the recap for this game for us on bgfalconmedia.com, and I mean, that's how I see it. But they're 1-1, and when you're a program like Bowling Green and you go to number 2 South Carolina, you're not going there to take a non-conference win and puff your chest and act hard. You know, that's not the point of that kind of game. Yeah, doesn't mean you don't like to see them compete more. Is 47 points a lot? No, it isn't. The Falcons lose 114-47 to the Gamecocks. But again, the number 2 team in the country, reigning runner-up.
Could I just say
Andrew.
real quick?
Sorry, that sounded like a teacher. Yes, Andrew.
South Carolina's going to win that game 100 times out of 100. They are unbelievable, year in and year out. Incredible coaching, all that.
I know you weren't here yet. They came here 2 years ago, ranked number 1, and just threw us around again. And it was just, incredible basketball to watch on there. And they are just pound for pound phenomenal.
For those listening, I'm a sophomore, so I was not there for that. But yeah, no, they're a great team year in and year out, and we're not going to win that game. But here's the thing: is I'm going to say what I said all of last season watching this team. I despise this Falcon offense for women's basketball. I despise it. I hate watching it. It is. I like to call it a handoff offense. They go back and forth around the top of the 3-point arc. They do not drive the lane. They do not. They look for fouls. It is very boring to watch. It does not win you a lot of games. It gets you. It's a very like Pittsburgh Steelers-esque way to play collegiate basketball. You're gonna win. You're gonna have a winning record, but you're not gonna do anything in the playoffs. Like
Wow.
it bores me and it
Wow.
saddens me,
Whoa.
and
That's a lot of bold statements.
Yeah.
Here for
It's
the second
calling
game
out
of the
other
season.
teams too.
I did not know you felt this strongly about this. I would have thrown this to you out of the game.
I feel very strong about this. I felt a similar way because men's basketball was kind of forced to do something very similar because of the amount of players that got hurt last season, and it
Atrocious.
became like just Javante Campbell trying to put points on
Dog
the
of
board.
the year.
Yeah, that he deserves a trophy simply for the way he played while hurt, carrying that team. But it's awesome they got him back. That's phenomenal. So I'm really enjoying watching the men's basketball again a lot more than I enjoy watching the women's, because it hurts me because I feel like they're a very good team and they get bogged down kind of by the style of play that they're being told to run.
And I feel like the last few years for them have been tumultuous enough. Number one, with just bringing in a new coach and player turnover and injuries, that it's kind of hard to like. I feel like there may be some difficulty for them establishing like. Teams play to their strengths, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I feel like on some level that style of ball is probably what they feel they can play. I mean, you look at, I know you weren't here, but Fred Schmiel's first year, Lexi Fleming gets injured and she's out for the season. They also get the return of Morgan Sharp's mid-season, and so there's lineup changes and changes in the valuable minutes then where they're being allocated, and then you go into last year, and then you're running 3 guards all year. Paige Kohler's kind of starting to emerge, Amy Velasco's doing her thing, Lexi Fleming's back, and they have to adapt to that too. Kind of limited big presence, like you're kind of saying. They don't really like drive in enough, and not very dominant in the rebounding necessarily, or just like that inside game. But yeah, I think I guess play style depends on personnel, I think, primarily, and like good coaches adapt their play style to their personnel. So I mean that may be a part of it, but yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Henry, thoughts?
Well, I thought they looked pretty good in the season opener.
I mean, I agree. Yeah,
that was an 82-67 win, and again, I mean, I assume that's where you're taking that sort of thing that you're talking about with how they ran their offense in that game, and I do kind of agree with that, but I think we'll probably see things hopefully change as we get a little bit furder into the season.
I mean, you had one real game that you can judge anything off of.
But this was also like all of last season as well, like watching this, and I just
fair.
I feel like, I don't know, I'm a very big fan of an offense that really like spreads the floor, has a big that likes to play big, can shoot the 3 well, like
good old fashioned basketball.
That's not necessarily, but like I love like the 20, as much as I hated that team being a Cavs fan, I loved the 2015-2016 like that Warriors offense. I loved the 2014 Spurs offense of passing the ball. I just really like pass heavy teams, like giving up a good shot for a great shot throw thing. And I feel like in this offense you don't even get the great shot look.
Yeah.
You're just settling a lot of the times either for free throws or a contested 3 ball. And you like sometimes it works and you get an open cutter or something like that, but most of the time those are the 2 results, is free throws or a contested 3.
I'm very intrigued by this, so I'm gonna counter again. So why do you think that is? Is this you don't like how coaches drawing it up? Is this players' decisions influencing this? I mean, how do you see it?
I see it as more so a coaching thing. I think if it's, I don't know.
And I mean, to be fair,
because
to give all due credit, Fred Schmiel's made the tournament both times. If they're winning, if they're consistently competing, who's to say,
and that's
we're not talking
same
good basketball,
argument
bad
for Mike
basketball.
Tomlin.
We're talking,
like,
basketball that works versus basketball that's fun to watch and works.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. But that's the same. That's the same argument that a lot of coaches that do that same thing get is, oh, he has winning record. He makes the playoffs. Makes the tournament.
But to your credit, they haven't achieved anything standout yet in this tenure. And so I do see where you're coming from. That is,
I feel as though when you watch a team like this, in order to get an offense to work, especially in basketball, there needs to be a certain I don't know what the word would be for it, but just some sort of
fluidity
to the offense. Yeah, so, exactly.
It
Thank you,
feels-
Nathan.
I feel
A
like
good
that's
flow to the offense. It feels slow. It feels clunky. It feels like there's a lot of time where the spacing gets caught up. Like ends up being 3 people on the wing, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like they could use more motion. They could use like they don't pass the ball a ton when they go on offense. They don't, and the thing is, like, it's not even like they end up in those kind of sets a lot because they're a team that gets a ton of steals and a ton of turnovers. So they're not even like, in comparison to a lot of other squads, they're not really running the offense as much as some other like MAC teams do because they get so many steals. I mean, Joanne Donahue has been just phenomenal.
Janae Donahue has been really good. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I mispronounced her name. I apologize, but she's obviously like by far my favorite player on the team.
Ben Korak is smiling somewhere right now.
Yeah,
And
he
if
is
he's not
smiling
listening,
somewhere.
he doesn't know
No,
why.
Ben and I disagree on a lot. And one of the things that we agree on is Donahue, and she plays like a dog, game in, game out. And yeah, that's all I've said. She's the best player on the team, and I feel like a lot. That's another thing that upsets me about the offense is a lot of it is run through Paige Kohler, which is great of a player as Paige Kohler is. I feel like they should lean on Donahue a little bit more for scoring.
Yeah, especially Paige Kohler, not a huge not an inside presence at all. She's just a guard. Again, you're not gonna get.
Can knock down a 3 though.
Yeah, sure.
And you're not getting her a ton of open looks. Like she has to settle for contested threes a lot of times because you're winding down the shot clock.
I mean,
with
even
this
if you're
offense.
getting somebody to drive in and kick out, or just opening up, forcing some more motion on the defense. I mean,
I guess that's my main thing is it doesn't seem like there's flow. There doesn't seem like they're passing the ball around as much as they should be. Like it feels slow, very slow pace, and it feels clunky at times. Like it's not just clicking.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
Working off that, I feel like the excuse that a lot of coaches will make when they have their system under attack like this is, oh, well, it works. We're getting wins. I'm not going South Carolina, but we're getting wins. We've gone to the MAC tournament. There needs to be a certain point where that's not good enough.
Yeah.
Just getting winning records and just making playoffs cannot be the do-all, end-all. Because then you get stuck like the Steelers where we make the playoffs every year and then lose. Okay, it's just not good enough.
And I feel like that's the argument that gets that's the argument that gets made for Mike Tomlin all the time.
And I
he
think
gets winning records. He doesn't win playoff games.
I think it's going to take pushing to the end of this season and seeing if this team makes the tournament and then what they do in the tournament to really be able to pass judgment. Because I think the first 2 years I don't think you can completely judge a coach unless you have like off the court issues. I don't think you can judge a coach based on their first 2 years in entirety at all.
But I think I do need to see some substance. It's year 3 now. You gotta win. You gotta win a tournament game.
If you don't win a tournament game this year, in my opinion, there is a serious discussion about what next year has to look like for this team.
I think this team
this is a good team talent wise. Sorry, Henry.
He's trying to
I'm good. Henry, you go ahead.
I'm just saying. I think
too much.
this is kind of a transition year for this program, just considering the amount that Lexi Fleming and Amy Velasco did for this team, especially in terms of energy and leadership from last year. It's going to be a big step up for Paige Kohler to kind of take on that role of the leader of this team. And I think the thing about this, especially with the schedule this year, is we're not really going to get a good look at what we're going to see from this team until MAC play kind of comes around. Seems like Ewell Lafayette is kind of the closest team that you will get to in terms of our competition, because the Sun Belt and the MAC are fairly even conferences, with maybe the MAC being a little bit better in basketball. But outside of that, they play Marquette and Wisconsin coming up, and then go to Alaska for a couple games. But then they'll come home and they'll play 3 non-D1 teams, Lemoyne and Purdue Fort Wayne. So we're not going to get a real good look at what this team is really going to be capable of until they get to MAC play, but that's plenty of time for them to really work on their offense and work on developing that sort of system, because you think it may take a little bit of time for Paige Kohler to get comfortable in her role, and for these new transfers, Jane Cook, who's going to be the more probably the most influential transfer, and then of course Kara Miller, who played pretty well in the opening match against Louisiana. She had 9 points in that one. So yeah, I mean, I just feel like it's a little too early, and it's kind of
for
a
sure.
different. It's gonna be a different story than last year. It's not gonna be the same team in any
I'm
capacity.
completely on the same page with you about MAC play being like the first time you get a real indicator, because I think Wisconsin and Marquette could both punch you in the mouth pretty easy. I'll admit I don't know enough about the Alaska games to judge UC Irvine and St. Thomas.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
then
UC
you
Irvine
get to
is
a stretch
solid.
like Kentucky State, Defiance, Lourdes. Specifically, like Defiance and Lourdes, like those are teams that you're going to handle with ease. Those are smaller Ohio colleges. I don't really think there's a lot of question marks around those games. And it's like, how much are you really learning? You know what I mean? I don't think they're even
right.
close to on the par. You know, I think Purdue-Fort Wayne is probably going to be the best indicator of the MAC schedule. I think the Horizon League's a lot closer in line, personally, than... I mean, you know, Defiance and Lourdes or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, at least I
Marquette,
know,
Wisconsin
yeah.
are punching down a little bit in that conversation. So I don't know. Yeah, I do think it's kind of just wait and see for conference time, and that's how this always goes when a sports season starts up. I think it's true almost across the board, basically whatever sport you're talking about, how you're going to judge how they're going to play in the conference until they play that level of competition.
Yeah.
You're going to speculate, and that's what we do. Sometimes we're right.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see if I'm right.
I appreciate
very wrong.
I appreciate the bold take.
Yeah. That's my bold take.
We'll see how
This
that
I like
offense,
to
is, this offense is terrible.
You know,
That's my
curiously
bold take.
enough, this team will not be back in action at home for a while. They have a heck of a road trip to start the season. Their next action will be November 12th.
Lucas Kleinmeyer, welcome to being volleyball for
Yeah, get ready to learn
non-conference play.
airplane, Lucas.
Get ready to
Look at
learn
airplane,
airplane.
Lucas. But the women's basketball team will be in Madison, Wisconsin to take on the University of Wisconsin, the Badgers, on November 12th, this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. I believe Lucas will be there, correct, for the call of this game?
I
believe
believe
he
that
will be.
it'll be either him or Adam Duffin.
Someone I do really like just from
That might be Adam.
women's basketball I have watched is I don't know how to pronounce the first name, so I'm not going to try, but Bland Fitzpatrick is the
Janaya.
last name. Janaya
Janiyah Bland Fitzpatrick.
Janiyah Bland Fitzpatrick.
Had nice
I
double
do
figures
like her.
in the South Carolina game, the only Falcon to do so, and 10 out of your team's 47 points is
I
pretty
like
good.
her a lot, and like I said, I like a big that plays big. She plays big.
It's nice.
She's got good post work, good footwork.
As
I'm enjoying watching her play.
As we close women's basketball talk, I will say I think that we're only going to see a lot more from her contributing to this team this year. I'm excited to watch her develop as a Falcon. But as always, with that upcoming Wisconsin game, check out bgfalconmedia.com for written coverage, and check out our socials, BG Falcon Media on Facebook and the other websites you use, and at BG_FMSN on Twitter X, where you can keep up with our written content as well as links to our broadcasts as well. That's going to do it for women's basketball. We're going to talk about men's basketball, who was just playing today, incidentally. Earlier this week, set a program record for steals in a single game against Bethany College en route to a 120-65 victory. And then just earlier today, tipping off at 2 p.m., they beat the Lemoyne Dolphins, which love the mascot. Lemoyne Dolphins, that's fun.
Lemoyne Dolphins.
Not enough college teams with fun mascots like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
83
Northeast team too, which is kind of
way
interesting.
funnier, right?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Wait, I assumed they were Southern. Are you
No,
serious?
they're
sir.
Northeast.
That's hilarious.
They did a-
83-60 win for the Falcons in that one.
Big one.
Again,
I mean,
I think the biggest indicator of anything that we've seen this season, to be honest, is the exhibition game against Michigan State, which is crazy. 66-75, you lose. You know, are you playing a full-strength Michigan State? Probably not. It's still a number 22 Michigan State. You're still going to the Breslin Center.
still a
on
Big
the
Ten
road.
team.
Big Ten team. And you're competing. Dayton kind of put the work on them after 59-90, another exhibition.
But that's also probably Dayton's definitely going to be a NCAA tournament team. That's
absolutely.
a very good Dayton
Them
team
are,
this
yeah.
year.
Good program as well, historically. But regardless, you know, I think this team is looking strong so far. Javante Campbell, to me, looks as good as ever. And I think in particular, if you look back at the game earlier this week against Bethany College, his numbers really kind of pop out at you. They actually, ironically, the Falcons were down 18-12 early in that game against Bethany College. But
And
they
then,
kind of
well,
just
Bethany was
roared back.
They were really hitting their threes early. In that game.
Well, and we said that in
and
the
then they kinda
pregame
fell
show
off a little
too.
bit
I was on
that.
the pregame show with Noah Seeley and Sam Bork, and one thing we talked about is for them, you know, we're gonna go give both teams their fair chance. It's college basketball. We just saw D2 Northwood in Michigan beat Western Michigan, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Only college basketball does that have it. You're not seeing that in football.
Maybe called March Madness, but genuinely college basketball, anybody can
It's
beat
insane.
anybody. If a team gets hot,
yeah. And we discussed that. Okay, what's the road for them to win? And obviously they didn't win, but I mean they started on the right foot. You have to come out swinging fast, and that's what they did. That early 6 points isn't a lot, especially in the first half, but still, gave the Falcons, a bit of a challenge early.
I think the offense this season is, for Bowling Green, is one, better at shooting the three, and two, simply looks like eye test is checking a lot of boxes for me. They are showing a lot of more hustle. I think there's a lot more like team compatibility. There's a lot more cohesion on the floor, a lot more extra passes. And defensively, I mean, the steals have been like, it's not even just Campbell. I mean, Campbell, we've already started the counter on when he's going to break records with his stealing. But the whole team is attributing to some great defense. I mean, some of the blocks I've seen, I know we're not playing great like opposition in these first three games here so far, but you also like against Lemoyne was the least you've beaten these three teams by, and it was a 23-point win. Like, you're clearly have stepped it up offensively, and I think the defense has also taken a step in the right direction. Okay, so we've upgraded. Like, where do we go from here? Like, what? Like, when you go into MAC play, the bar needs to be set high, just as it was set. Like your current, like when you win these non-conference games and you win them by this margin, and then you go and now you're going to play Davidson, William and Mary, you're going to play these other schools here, and then you go and you have Kansas State in the 1st of December. Like, you set the bar going into MAC play. And when you set that bar of like, our offense is better, our defense is better, you got to expect a better result. And also hope that there are no more injuries, because that's really what hurt your season last year.
I think it's kind of a three-pronged test for them prior to MAC play. For the teams you play against that are in comparable, group of 5 type, I know it's not football, there's a lot more conferences, but teams that are comparable conferences, Horizon League type opponents, that sort of thing, you've got to be competitive, and frankly, like, you should be winning a lot of those games. If you're playing a team that's in like a power conference, you still, frankly, like, you need to look competitive. Kansas State, I want to see them look competitive. I don't, I haven't scouted out Kansas State yet.
I just looked. We're playing the Virginia Military Institute. That's,
And Bucknell.
I didn't look that far in the schedule.
William and Mary, Davidson. You got some programs that can be competitive there. Yeah. But there's none of these games should you lose badly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Davidson is going to be a good test to see where they're at, because that's a tough road trip to go down there and play. And Davidson's a solid A10 program. But I think really the difference, you mentioned offensively, the difference, you mentioned how much Javonte Campbell they had to rely on him, especially at the end of the year last year. But these transfers that they've brought in, I think are really going to they're going to take the weight off him offensively to the point where he's going to really excel on both sides of the ball this year. Javonte Campbell had another 8 steals today against Lemoyne, and Josiah Shackelford had probably the best
this dude's going to drop a double-double with steals.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, Josiah Shackelford had 18 today, which is probably the best game anyone's had outside of Campbell all season. And then Myra Wool has looked really good as well, whether they use him as a bench piece or as a starter. He was 4 for 4 from beyond the arc against Texas State, and he had another solid game today. And then Justin Thomas, Troy Glover have both looked very good as well.
Sam Towns is looking solid
Sam Towns looks good. Jason Kimbrough played a lot against Bethany, and he's a kind of an offensive weapon. He has a bit of a defensive he's had a bit of defensive trouble early in the year, but he's looked good as well. So I think the transfer class is just really going to be impressive this year. And I mean, you mentioned it. The key is they just need to stay healthy, even halfway through MAC play. Just keep everyone healthy if they can.
And to that credit, what a job Todd Simon has done retooling in the transfer portal yet again. I know last year didn't really give the team the opportunity to appreciate it because of the injury woes, but also that's a team that arguably should, got lucky with a result going their way right after they lost their last game, but they shouldn't have been in the tournament. frankly, with those injuries. The fact that they were able to stumble into a spot at all.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, they absolutely did get lucky. I mean that.
Yeah, I mean we're
that,
going
that
to
you lost to
West.
you lost to Western Michigan. You should have been out of the tournament. You got lucky, but also beating Toledo at Savage Arena, like being at that game, Javante Campbell game-winning layup, like you put yourself in the position to even have a shot.
Yeah.
And you got you won the lottery essentially to even make it there. But I do think it's a great job by Coach Simon to go out and find these players that I think honestly, in comparison to last year, fit his style of play better. And I think the offense is running to what he wanted it to be last year. And I think it's going to be a really good season. We'll have to wait for MAC play as Tyler Kablitz
8 games in the way until
says.
then, but we will in fact wait till MAC play. I realized I never circled and finished my thought, my three points. Number 1, you've got to beat those teams that are in those comparable conferences, A10 type teams if they're on like the bottom end, etc. Number 2, like a Kansas State game, a game against like Davidson. I'm okay if they lose those competitively. Like I'm not going to be like, whoa, that's bad, that shouldn't be happening. And number 3, you got to just stay healthy. I think those things happen. They're going to be in good shape. There's 8 games until their MAC opener against Ohio on December 20th, which seems like a long way away, but it's going to sneak up fast.
As Tyler Kablitz always said, just wait till MAC play.
I think they go right now. Just gut. I think they go 5-3 over those 8 games before MAC play.
That call.
I think they drop Kansas State. I think they drop the Davidson game and one more somewhere along the way.
I think they're going to go 6-2.
I could also see that because those are the only games where I really feel confident.
I think they're going to lose to Kansas State and Chicago State.
Chicago State?
Crazy call, but I think they're going to lose to Chicago State.
Is
wild shout. At home, too.
Yeah. Home upset before you face Ohio. That seems very Bowling Green-esque. I think you managed to beat Davidson.
Very Bowling Green-esque.
Very Bowling Green-esque.
I don't know who that's a shout to, but I like that. That's funny.
They have mostly football.
Regardless, will you have anything? You have thoughts?
Well, I was just gonna say I think the main difference this year is just gonna be how much more size they have at the front court, just because they had so many problems with size last year, and now you have. Not only do you have a full starting core of guys that you can trust, I think this year in Towns and Thomas and Glover, you have some depth as well. Camden Carroll has looked okay, and Aiden Goins has looked solid as well. So, if they do end up getting maybe an injury or two, they still are going to have, I think, a lot more of a shot than maybe they did. And they have a lot more depth this year than they did last year.
It is really something they were lacking. And, Javante Campbell's a somewhat undersized guy himself. And, he's your best player doing the most. And, a lot of those games they lost last year, they're just physically outmatched. The size matters a lot.
Yeah,
so
in the Akron game. The Akron game was brutal in that.
That one was really bad.
I think sometimes we overhype how much size can matter in a basketball game. Because Javante Campbell, he, plays big. But honestly, it kind of, I think being the size that he is benefits him and when he's going for steals. 8 steals and is back-to-back games now, 8 steals. When it helps you in the steals department because you're lower to the ground. It's easier to pick the ball away from
sometimes
a big
quicker
guy.
Than the big-bodied guys,
exactly.
right?
I feel like we undervalue a smaller player sometimes in the basketball scope.
But you just want women's basketball to get bigger?
I never said that. I never said I wanted it bigger. I said I like when big guys play big.
He wants them to play bigger.
I like when. No, I like. Wait, hold on. What?
Please clarify.
I'm confused by that. No, I like when, I don't know, You're making me talk about NBA now. Don't get me going on this rant. But more Shaq archetype or what do you want me to say? What do you want me to say?
I also like one of the best centers of all time.
But like a big guy that plays not the stretch big where it's like you're out behind the 3-point line. I mean like a big guy that's gonna be in the paint and play big and get blocks and
you would be
dunk the ball.
shocked how much that Shaq call out kind of foreshadows the question we're going to close with. Almost.
Really?
It'll make sense.
Wow.
It'll make sense. But that's really
Will it?
funny.
No, but like
No,
that's all.
I get where you're coming from. All
Yeah.
putting you on the spot aside, Andrew. I get where you're coming from, and it's different cases with the two teams too. The size discrepancy last year often was a lot greater than we saw for the men's team than for the women's team because of the injuries, and you've got so many guys who are 6'5", 6'6", etc. So, anyways. Next up for the men's basketball team, they will go to North Carolina to take on Davidson in John M. Belk Arena, November 15th, this Saturday, so 6 days at 6 p.m. Falcon Media Sports Network, as always, will have coverage of that one in some way or another. I don't think we're sending anybody to that, but I could be totally wrong on that.
Davidson?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tyler, Artie Foster, and I think are all going.
Oh, man, the road trip. Never mind. I take it back. I should have consulted that first.
I believe so. I think it's not confirmed yet.
As always, if you're listening, you probably know where to go, bgfalconmedia.com to check out all the coverage of that. Check out BG_FMSN on Twitter X and BG Falcon Media on other socials and YouTube for content around that. It's going to wrap up men's basketball, and as we're nearing the 15 minutes till the top of the hour, we're going to go into volleyball, who kept their tournament hopes very much alive in what, to be honest, I felt was kind of improbable after Friday's match against Akron. Friday, Akron swept the Falcons 3-0, making how many consecutive sweeps was that for them? Against them, Andrew?
That was they are now 1-6. They were 1-6 going into I'm sorry. You asked a different question. You asked about sweeps. My brain
That's okay.
went away.
Go with what you got.
Okay, they're 1-6 in 5 setters going into that match last night. Now 2-6. The only two reverse sweeps that have happened to them prior to yesterday were against them. One against Georgia Tech and then against Western Michigan. It's heartbreaking to lose that many 5 setters, and they were also in a row. Like you had the one to Ball State, then you had
Western
two Western Michigan ones, and then you finally get one to go. Oh, and then another one against Miami, and you finally get one to go your way. But as far as getting swept goes, they got swept twice in a row on a 3-game losing streak. Lost 2 to Miami, then won the previous day to Akron. They just didn't look like the same team that we are so used to seeing. I know they don't have like injuries have hurt them this year, but they just weren't playing like themselves. They weren't playing how they know they can. It comes down a lot to intangibles of why they weren't playing well or the way they should be playing. I think the rotation change that happened on senior night, Anastasia Bozic came in and played the outside. Played actually all the way around. Freshman, by the way. Played really, really well. Out of her mind. Offensively and defensively. Didn't do anything that because Ahmed Otten's the MVP of that match. Avery Anders, Sydney Hernandez both had incredible games in the back row. Jessica Andrews played phenomenal. So by no means is Bozic the MVP of that for the Falcons, but she played her role beautifully. She played her role in that match very, very well. And that's really all you can ask. And a big ask of a freshman to come in and do that high pressure, play the entire rotation, back row and front row, and do it to that level. So a big, big win for the Falcons to get that reverse sweep.
And now you're looking at it, you're staring down your last matches of the season for the Falcons, a trip to Buffalo this coming Thursday and Friday? Is that 14? No, it's Friday, Saturday. That's Friday, Saturday. That's right.
Friday, Saturday at Buffalo.
This Friday and Saturday at Buffalo. Not the premier team in the conference, 6-10 conference standing.
But they're
for them.
They're a team that can't
But
upset.
they're
They
a
just
team-
upset They swept Toledo and then got swept by Toledo in their past 2 games.
They went 5 when they beat Toledo.
Oh, they went 5.
But
Oh.
but I mean, still competing with Toledo, who we've seen is a competitive team in the MAC, absolutely. So regardless, I mean,
I was looking at that. I was looking at that for sure.
I got you, yeah. But like that, not a team that you can, underestimate at all. And you have to win both, in my opinion. I mean, you're below Akron right now.
The MAC has been kind of weird, honestly. The volleyball scope. I mean, Ohio's in 3rd. If you had told me Ohio was going to be in 3rd place in the MAC, and they're probably going to
game winning streak too.
Yeah, they're going to stay there too. They're going to be in 3rd place, like when you go into the tournament.
Well, even if they didn't, they can't miss.
Yeah, they're absolutely going to be in the tournament. Without a doubt, for me, they will be the 3rd place team in the tournament. If you had told me that at the beginning of the season, I would have called you crazy. After watching them play against Bowling Green in the first match of the MAC season for both squads. There we go. Bowling Green beat them in 4. First set was the only one that was competitive. That's the one that Ohio won, and then Bowling Green beat them in 3 straight. Wasn't even that difficult for the Falcons. Yeah, exactly. And then they've gone out. They're on a 6-game winning streak right now. They're the only team to have beaten Ball State, who's sitting at the top of the conference, 15-1. That team is scary. It's just it's crazy to me. I don't know what happened, what the turnaround was of not looking strong at all in the beginning of the season, and then just flipping a switch and being so lights out against the best teams in the MAC too.
I think they're the most interesting story looking into the MAC tournament now, because you look from October 7th, they're first against Kent, except for a loss against Ball State. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah. They lost 4 straight to start the MAC season.
And they've won 11 out of 12 since then, including 6 in a row.
And that one loss was to the best
top team in the conference, who's only lost that one.
Isn't that why? Like, what
a hot
changed?
streak.
I have no idea. Like, I've watched them, but I haven't watched them to the extent of being like,
we've seen teams
they
have slow
look much
starts,
better.
But yeah.
But they, I don't know. It's such a weird thing. But they're playing really, really well. They're going to be a scary team in the tournament. If the Falcons make it there, it's still an if, because in order for the Falcons to do it, they need to beat Buffalo in both matches, which the Bulls are not, they're not one of the top teams in the conference. They're not going to make the tournament. They're already done in that regard, but they're right beneath us in the standings.
You potentially need some help, too, from Toledo, right?
Mm-hmm. You do need some help from Toledo. Toledo needs to win one against Akron, because Miami won both of their games, and Miami holds the tiebreaker over the Falcons. So regardless of what they do, they will be in, I believe.
Well, but I'm saying Bowling Green can split with Buffalo as long as Toledo sweeps Akron.
That is true. Let's not do that.
As a Falcon fan, you certainly wouldn't want Bowling Green to split with Buffalo. Handle it on your own terms, but also
you have to, because Toledo's not. I don't think Toledo's going to beat Akron in both games. I think Akron's going to get one.
You think they're going to split?
Because their blocking was very, very good, and I think that will really hurt Toledo. The way they blocked too was really, at least against us, in that first match especially, their blocking. Looked a lot for one touches, not necessarily for block. I mean, Ozo, when she came in, she was looking for block kills. But other than that, everybody else was looking for just one touches to keep the point alive. And that hurt us, especially because if we don't put it down pretty quick, we struggle in rallies. We win them on occasion, but we do struggle in rallies more often than not. And we're not a team we're a team that's become more about placement of our swings when we're swinging to kill, rather than a team that's been about power, besides Jessica Andrews, because she's Jessica Andrews and she's 6'4" and swings hard at the ball every single time. But outside of her, we're a team that is definitely more about placement of the ball rather than power. And so when a team is just one-touching everything and keeping the ball in the air, it really hurts us, and that's what Ball State did, that's what Western Michigan did, that's what Miami did, and that's what Akron did. And that's the reason that all those teams got wins against us. And I think we finally figured something out, though, with Bozic coming into the lineup with Otten going all the way around. She's back in that 5-1 where she's most comfortable. Oh, excuse me. Big yawn.
Long day.
Long day, and yeah, you talk a lot, and also a lot of talking yesterday for me in 5 sets. This team needs to stop taking me to 5 sets. That's my first win, by the way, on play-by-play.
There you go. Hey, first time for everything, buddy.
After so long of me,
It's been that long.
yeah,
Jeez.
traveling with. I every time Ben Korak is, they should just have him do play-by-play every time, because apparently they only win when he's doing play-by-play.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Finally, the curse is broken. No, but it was such a great game to watch, and on senior night too. Like, I asked Amanda Otten in our interview with her post game about it, about playing on senior night and how she was able to kind of kick into that extra gear and play that. She nearly had triple-double in assists and kills and digs. She was 1 dig shy, had 9, 10 kills, all on setter dumps, which is
Crazy.
really
Wow.
crazy. Yeah, no overpass kills, all setter dumps. It was wild. Along with I think 3 blocks, and a pair of service aces. She played one of them in the 5th set, so she played out of her mind. I think the thing about Amanda and like getting to traveling with the team and actually like getting to know her outside of a player on the court has been really cool. She doesn't have very sociable person, but really needs to kind of level up the confidence of realizing, hey, I'm the best player on the court in 99% of the games I play. Besides the ranked games against Georgia Tech, Purdue, Kansas, she's been the best player on the court. She just needs to start. I think when she's playing, she plays like it, but I think it needs to mentally click for her at some point. Maybe it will once the season ends and she goes into next year as a senior. But her playing in the 5-1 played really, really well, and just team looked as soon as halfway through that 3rd set hit, team just looked a lot more comfortable. The blocking stepped up finally after what feels like so long. Our blocking was finally comparable to how it usually is, how it was all of last season, and in the beginnings of this one, in non-conference, in the early goings of MAC play. Really, really just impressed with the team, because you've been swept twice in a row. You go down 2-0. It's really easy to fall in the mentality of this is just how it's going to be.
Just phone it in
We're
and pack it in, yeah.
We're gonna get swept again, and just going out and balling out. Really, I think for the seniors on senior night, Lauren Hovey obviously not able to play. Still was suited up and checked in, just to have to say she had a set play on her senior night.
Right.
I know it's probably killing her that she wasn't. It's killing her that she's not been able to play at all. But injuries are injuries, and it's important to, she doesn't want to hurt herself worse. And she looked decent against Ball State when she played, but we'll see what happens going into Buffalo, because those wins are not just important, they're necessary. And you got to win both, because I don't think Toledo's going to be able to beat Akron 2 days in a row. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tall ask for anyone. I mean, just beating the same opponent back-to-back nights is a tall ask in general.
Yeah.
And especially
Ask
these
Akron.
are all, competitive teams currently. And, ask Akron, right? But currently in spot to make the tournament right now. So, I mean, it's anybody's spot right now, and I really think that we could see it go anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this team, after seeing the turnaround against Akron in night 2, I feel like this team's going to get it done and make the tournament. I feel like Bowling Green's going to rally, and I think they're going to get into that last spot. But we're going to have to just wait and see that one.
Yeah.
The last matches of the regular season and potentially of the year, depending on how they go for the Falcons, coming up when they travel to Buffalo on November 14th and 15th, Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. and 4 p.m. respectively. Falcon Media Sports Network, as always, will have coverage of that. Check out bgfalconmedia.com for all of that coverage. And Andrew, are you going?
I will be.
And Andrew Smith will be there on the call. As always, stay tuned into our website as well as social profiles to check out the times for those, usually about 25 minutes if there's a pregame show prior to those tip-offs. So check that out. We are basically at the top of the hour here, but we've got a lot more to talk about. Women's and men's soccer. Women's making a close run to the title. Men's missing tournament against a lot of expectations starting the year. And hockey taking home 3 points on a busy weekend in Mankato. We've got all this and more coming up, but we're going to step away for station identification. But you've still got an hour left here on the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
Follow and engage with BG Falcon Media on social media. Find the handle at BG Falcon Media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube for all sorts of content, including news information, BGSU athletics coverage, and feature stories from across campus. Enjoy specialty content such as full episodes of the local music showcase, Live and Loud. The coverage continues with BG Falcon Media on all major social platforms.
Ever heard of Falcon Media Sports Network's broadcasts on Falcon Radio or WBGU 88.1 FM but don't know where to listen? Well, set down the radio, pick up your phone, and go to bgfalconmedia.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to stream Falcon Radio and WBGU 88.1 FM for all broadcasts.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
Welcome back to the Zig Zone here on WBGU 88.1 FM, Falcon Media Sports Network's flagship show, taking you through everything going on in the world of Falcon athletics. As always, I'm your host, Holden Ruck, joined once again by Henry Costco, Andrew Smith, and Nathan Burkett. And we're back here in the second hour to talk about women's soccer, men's soccer, and hockey, and wrap it up with what I think is a pretty fun discussion. We're going to go right into women's soccer, though. Truly the heartbreaker of the last week of sports for anybody who is watching and everyone who should have been watching. Making the MAC tournament final and coming up just short, a 1-0 regulation final against Western Michigan.
Yeah.
Those Broncos,
Was there any other
every time, could have
score
not
that was
been
gonna
any
be-
other MAC team.
It's always Western.
I
always
hate
Western.
Western Michigan.
I'll be objective, but the BG student in me just can't believe that it's always Western.
It's always Western.
It's always Western.
I genuinely, as far as like, not in basketball or football, because Toledo's always going to be the top rival in those sports, especially. But for volleyball and both soccer teams, I hate Western Michigan more than I hate Toledo. And hockey as well.
Hockey
you
as
know
well.
what? Hockey as well.
They've even owned us in baseball and softball too. Didn't they knock us out of the tournament?
I don't
a couple
watch
years
enough
ago?
baseball and
I think they
softball.
did.
They
like
did
baseball.
once, and then Ball State, I think, knocked us
That
out of
was last
losers in
year.
the year we won the year we won the regular season.
Yeah.
But regardless, women's soccer comes up short. And the biggest
Makes me
thing,
sad.
the biggest thing that hurt to watch to me, and Henry knows exactly where I'm going. You're in the last, I want to say 2 minutes, like last minute 30. Approximately. It might not have been that close, but you're down the stretch. You're under 10 minutes for sure in the second half, and you've got a little you've got like traffic, and then it opens up, and the Western goal is wide open, and Ellie Poole just sails it. With teammates farther in the box available to pass to. I mean, that's a hard situation to play in, but I mean, you're not going to see a goal more open than that.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen to anybody.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's certainly not a
it's
not a
just,
negative shout to Ellie Poole by any means.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just one of those things, and like I just feel.
I feel for her.
I feel for her, especially
Yeah.
because that was her last chance to win a title with BG. She's graduating after the season, and that's going to be kind of the last taste of the field that she's going to have collegiately.
Yeah.
Which is just it's tough to take as a player. That's tough for sure.
That
for
really weighs
anybody.
on you, though.
Yeah.
Of like
Yeah.
because especially like it's a very athlete mentality to be like, this one mistake that I made
That's on
cost
me.
us the game. Like,
Yeah.
no, there
It's
was
not. It
that goal
wasn't
could
their
have
fault.
not
It
happened.
yeah.
That Western got. There was plenty of other opportunities that Bowling Green had, especially within those
Yeah.
last 10 minutes. They had like 3 really good opportunities
Yeah.
to score. That was the most obvious one, but
The other one, a centered ball where there was, again, just kind of a jumble of players, and Stransky just kind of overruns it, taps it, and
Yeah.
Western is able to recover from that too. Again, both of those players could have happened to anyone, but just unfortunate. You have to feel for them watching those chances and watching that team. I mean, how close was that team to overtime? And frankly, if they go to overtime, if they go to penalty kicks, I like their odds.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a good overtime team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Fox talked about it kind of in the post game that we did. He thought that the team played well, and it seemed like they had more chances total, especially if you count all the stuff they had in the second half than Western did throughout the entire game. And just, it would have been a kind of, I don't want to say a Cinderella story, but it would have been close to it if they were able to do that, just considering how much Western was the only team to score a goal in regulation in the entire tournament. So they played only 90 minutes in their semifinal, while BG played 2 overtime. They played 4 overtimes total. They played 40 extra minutes in the tournament alone, and then they had kind of a gauntlet of a schedule to end the season. So they were just tired on their last leg at that point in the match. And I mean, they still played well. It was one of those games that it could have gone either way. It could have gone to OT very, very easily, and they could have won in penalty kicks. But I mean, credit to Western. Lewis Robinson is one of the best mid-major coaches in the country, period. And he's definitely proved himself as being the best coach in the MAC, I think, at this point. And I think he's definitely earned himself a right to possibly jump up to a Power 4 team coming either next year or the year after that.
I feel like you could say that about so many Western coaches.
Yeah, you can say that about
really, that's
hockey
so.
and soccer.
That's like about the most annoying thing about them is they're consistently just there,
I mean,
and it's mind-boggling to me. Like like volleyball, they have Colleen Munson, who's another great coach, and she's been her 21st season with the team.
Yeah.
It's just they got really great, consistent coaching. I don't know who's doing the hiring for athletics, but they're nailing it.
Yeah, same thing on the gridiron. If they can get past Ohio, they have pretty smooth sailing playing Northern Illinois and Eastern Michigan for the chance to make a MAC championship for football too. Like they're able to compete across the board everywhere.
Yeah, Chad Wiseman is their men's head coach, and he's one of the best recruiters just in the country, straight up for the men's soccer program.
Aren't they? Haven't they been ranked a few times now? The men's
Oh,
soccer?
yeah.
Yes, plenty of times. Yeah.
Consistent power. I mean, the streak they had against Bowling Green alone tells you a little bit about how good that
and
team was.
they had I think it was 23 games straight and unbeaten in conference play up till they lost one this year to NIU, which was a team that didn't even make the tournament, which is classic. But I mean, they've been dominant the past few years. And
that
Bowling Green
count. That doesn't count last year's loss against the Falcons, though, right?
in what? And I'm talking about women's soccer.
Oh, I'm sorry. You mentioned the
sorry.
recruiter, and I got
No,
you're right.
I'm sorry, not men's.
No, women's soccer.
Yeah, they had a streak of their own in men's as well, but
Which is also crazy, but
yeah, and I mean, I think the win that really impressed me was that victory over Buffalo, just because of how established Sean Burke is, and that was one of the best teams that he's had in his, I believe, 8 years at Buffalo, and Bowling Green beat them straight up, dominated the second half. Took him to overtime, took him to penalty kicks, took the game winner in the second overtime. And I mean, just I'm sure this might be something you were going to hit on, but the optimism of this team for next year is kind of going to be sky high, especially if Lewis Robinson ends up leaving after this season.
That's exactly where I'm at, especially if you take yourself over to bgsufalcons.com, find the women's soccer tab, and look down that roster and look how many of those players are going to be returning next year with eligibility.
27 of 29. Ellie Poole is really going to be the only main contributor that's leaving. Emily Holler got kind of scared minutes throughout the season, but yeah, I mean, I don't see anybody really leaving. Either maybe a couple freshmen, some younger player, one or two might end up leaving in the portal, but I see the overwhelming majority, minus maybe one or two staying with the squad.
Especially
and then
with this result, even for a player with the potential to maybe move, I feel like you've got like unfinished business.
Yeah,
and it's not ending on a note that's going to sour anybody. Like, okay, you know what? I need to change the scenery. I want to go somewhere else.
I think instead it's more of a note of like, they shouldn't have even really been in that situation of being in the championship. Is like they were the 6th seed. They're not really even supposed to be in that situation. One, it's a great mark for a first-year head coach. Two, second year. Excuse me.
But you're right.
Fault.
Yeah,
it's still second year, absolutely.
Yeah. It's his first year.
turnover.
It's his first year was pretty much his full team. He had his own players recruited and everything this year.
What a great turnover from last year. Going 7-7-4 last year, coming into this year, you finish 10-3-9. That's already impressive enough. Last year you lost in the first game of the MAC championship or MAC tournament. Yeah. This game you go all the way to the championship game and just lose by 1 goal.
It does sets a high bar though of like you got to win it next year,
well,
or you got to be you got to.
I think the expectation is to be back.
You have to,
but I will say this too, Andrew, because soccer is such a weird sport with the way that scoring and points works in like conference games. I feel like it's not. I get what you're saying about like they're the 60. They're not supposed to be there.
I know of like.
With the fact that you only get partial points from ties, they're playing even with or better than every team
100%
but
get that,
two
but
in the regular season. So all I'm saying is
I didn't think they were okay. I didn't think they were going to be.
And that's fair. No, I think that's a completely fair take too.
They had one conference loss in the entire regular season, and I think the consensus going into the tournament was kind of Western was kind of a level above everybody else, but everybody else was on a pretty level playing field in terms of. They also couldn't
score more than 1 goal in a game for most.
Yeah, but they didn't give up more than 1 goal the entire season.
Okay, then you got it. Well, listen, they went to the championship. They lost because they couldn't score. I'm like that's.
I'll give you that.
Let's be real. They lost because they couldn't get the 1 goal needed to tie that up.
Most teams do lose because they score less points than the other team.
Okay.
Western was the only team to score in regulation.
Aside, I think my biggest counter to what you're saying, because I get what you're saying, and I don't think you're entirely wrong. I think that the seeding tells a very dishonest story about a lot of the teams, but mostly Bowling Green. That's a 6th seed that, with a couple results going slightly, looking slightly different, is a 2 seed.
Yeah, they had a top 15 defense in the country throughout the entire season, and that doesn't speak as a
even if you look at like the offensive lack of production, if you look at like, games where they shot comparably to their opponents, where they control. I know it's not as a rigidly tracked time of possession compared to like how you see it in like football.
Good next year.
This is a team that could have easily like. The games they tied, I think more often than not, Henry, you can attest this, I think more often than not they were as good or the better team. I don't think they tied often as the worst team.
No. I think
almost ever.
I think they come into next year. I definitely think they retain most of, if not all, of the players on their roster that can return at the 27, was it?
Yeah. As a meaningful contributor, I have a hard time seeing why you leave this team. I think players
exactly.
No. All the main contributors.
Can I just?
Yeah.
I don't think they leave because I think it's like you said, Holden, unfinished business. You don't lose to a team 1-0 in a game you feel like you absolutely could have won and go, well, I guess I'm going to leave now. Like, and that's not something that
wasn't it in like the 70th, somewhere in the 70s minute wise?
For Western?
Yes.
It was.
I think it was early second half.
Was it earlier?
It was earlier second half.
I know it was second half.
But regardless, you're not going to leave. And I also feel like this team could be so good. You said top 15 defense in the country. If you go out, you recruit, and you get some offensive power, wow. You genuinely could be like. I was joking when I said you got to win MAC championship next year, but you really could. You're definitely in position to do that.
And they dealt with injuries this year as well. Taylor Green missed 5 games. Alexis Prales was out for, I think, the entirety of conference play, so she'll be back fully healthy. And everybody's going to get better. Everybody's going to have an extra year of experience. Peyton O'Malley's only a sophomore, and she was one of the best goalkeepers in the conference.
O'Malley's I didn't even know.
And that defensive line too. How good are Taylor Green and Gabby Lamparty in particular?
They're unbelievable.
incredible to watch, which I think people don't appreciate for defenders in soccer.
Yeah, I mean the possession-based style is what wins them pretty much all of their games and gets them all of their draws. It's how they pretty much earn all their points, and it starts at the back line and their ability to consistently, possess the ball and not really make any errors. They made maybe one or two the entire season that kind of cost them, but it was majority. Gabby Lamparty, there's a reason she was an All-MAC first team player in her first year in the conference. She was lights out. We didn't really say her name much at all throughout the entire season. As a defender, that usually means she's doing a pretty good job because they're not making errors. So
yeah, and I mean, genuinely, the only time that I remember distinctly watching one of them do something where it's like, oh no, you say that audibly, is in the Ball State game. Taylor Green, her first game back from injury, she slipped on some wet
that's
grass.
slipping. You can't blame them for
slipping.
Scored.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not even a mistake on her part. It's just it's part of the game. It happens.
And Lamparty was the second best player on the team offensively in terms of points. She had 9 points on the season as well.
That is a separate conversation. So. Her production offensively is crazy.
Yeah, she really benefited off the set pieces.
What was the numbers again?
3 goals, 3 assists. So 9 points. Second on the team. Emma Stransky had the most with 17 points total. But she beat out Ellie Poole, Lizzie Boltnick, Butera, Ella Kane, Mazzaferro.
There's a strong case for her being like the most important player on that team.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an exaggeration.
I think there, the Green was the lone captain for the majority of this year, but I think pretty much the entire team could almost be a captain at this point. Stransky is captain level. Lamparty, Green, Butera, even O'Malley are all pretty even leaders.
Yeah, I think you saw a lot of that actually.
Roster.
Watching the shootout against Miami, the composure of Peyton O'Malley, that's something that hugely stuck out to me, and the fact that they get her for another 2 years is amazing. Yeah.
That's the thing with how good this team is in overtime and how they're built for PKs,
and
especially with how good they are in the second half that they've been throughout the year. That was a big part in them getting to the final for sure.
From the Falcon fan perspective, it's a heartbreaker to look at, but I don't think there's any way to slice it other than a very successful second season for Chris Fox. He's stamped himself as one of the premier coaches in the MAC, in my opinion. Yeah. And I think the sky is only the limit for this team. They're so young.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that he has the respect of pretty much every team he plays, just in terms of how he's able to control the game pretty much at will at a lot of times, especially against inferior opponents. They don't really give up bad results against bad teams. They didn't do that at all this year.
And after their loss against Ball State, their lone conference loss, one of 2 losses in the regular season, I asked post-game because they were at risk of missing the tournament at the time, and Chris Fox said, we feel like nobody, really wants to play us, basically. Yes. Like, I don't think they want to see us in the tournament about Ball State. And, they roar back to the championship game. I mean, that's, putting his money where his mouth is right there. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, that team was confident. And even Ball State was a game that they had a ton of chances.
Confident, but not arrogant.
Confident, that's a good way to put it, yeah.
And, I think this team should be top 2-3 team to watch next year.
Yeah, and I'll just say this as I know we're kind of wrapping up women's soccer. If you're just a fan of MAC sports in general, Western Michigan is, I believe I'm looking right now at RPI. They are the 33rd ranked team in RPI in the country right now. So they're going to get a pretty even bid in terms of quality of opponent in the first round of the tournament. They're going to get a team, in the 30s or high 20s, kind of like them, like Xavier, possibly Dayton, Northwestern. So they have a very, very solid shot to win the first round, maybe even win a second round game. And
that even puts into perspective, again, like how good this Bowling Green team was and how good they're slated to be next year.
Yeah, but I'm excited to watch Western in the tournament. They're a pleasure to watch just as a fan of the game.
As a fan of the game, when you look at it from the Falcon perspective, it's one of those losses that you're not going to be able to erase from your memory anytime soon. But this is a team that's far from done writing its collective story. So women's soccer, the season concludes, but not done at all. This regime, this roster is just getting started. On a more of a downer note, we got to talk about men's soccer.
That's one way to put it.
Unfortunately, with just the way their season ended, I think it's the way to put it. So they went into their season finale. Last game, they only had 1 game left since we last talked about them on this show last week. They had to travel to DeKalb, take on Northern Illinois. They needed not only a win, but another result in their favor in UIC's game to be able to clinch a spot in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. So they needed two things to go their way. They had control over one of them. And the one they had control over, I'll say control in air quotes, it's a 4-0 loss against Northern Illinois.
Yeah. The silver lining was that wouldn't have mattered anyway because UIC won in their season finale. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know. The team just didn't look, especially because kind of they knew maybe going to the second half because they were down 2-0 in the first 10 minutes of the match. And this team had 6 shots on goal, 11 shots total for BGs. And they had more shots on goal than NIU did despite the 4-0 loss. So they didn't necessarily get really, destroyed kind of like the score says. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't a good performance. And, it's sad that it came to this point in the season. They just didn't have much left in the tank, really.
And I feel like going into next year, it's not, you don't have the, hey, it's all up, we're trending up that the women's team had. And, anybody who watches Bowling Green sports can and should trust Coach Nichols to right the ship. The Missouri Valley Conference, it's a weird conference. It's the number of teams, the quality of some of them, it's hard to judge year to year. But I think in the last time that you're going to have Trace Terry playing for this team in particular, and you've got Andrew Schaefer, last time he's playing for this team, it's just disappointing for them. It makes me, it makes the fan in me glad that they were able to get that win on senior night. Yeah. Because, I mean, just that was one unceremonious way to go out, truly.
Yeah, that was a nice moment. It's good. It's definitely going to be up to see what they can do recruiting wise in the coming years. I know there's maybe not a lot of hype, but there's hope around Tyson McCoy and Adine Ibrahimovic, who are the 2 young forwards who are going to be, probably getting more minutes as the years progress. And, Trace Terry, Andrew Schaefer leaving, obviously, is going to be tough. But, Gonzalo Carranza, he was brought in for a reason. He's the recruiting coordinator of this team, and we saw some of the moves that he made this year, and it's going to be up to him to really booster this team in recruiting, because recruiting is tough in NCAA men's soccer, especially with all of the international players and the mix of that with players coming out of high school. It's a game of its own. So we'll see how that kind of happens in the next year, but it's going to be key for them. And I mean, Bennett Painter will probably be returning. I would assume he's going to be a captain in the 2026 season, but we'll just have to wait and see. There's not much to say about it right now.
Yeah, it's more unknowns than known. The biggest point of optimism that I can find from Falcons fans is, as far as I can see it, when you look at the 24-25 turnover, you're returning, Andrew Schaefer, young Raiko Bodorov, Trace Terry, Bennett Painter coming into this year. That's kind of the biggest pieces of continuity that you've got coming into this year. It feels like less overall turnover. You had a lot of guys lost from 24 to 25. And so, I think they're starting to figure out some of those pieces, like can Raiko Bodorov, step up and be one of those, really high contributors and, just like the overall points metrics, scoring himself or just, continuing to assist as he did well this season. You've got a lot of questions, but I think you're finding some answers, and it feels like less turnover than the previous year. Now you are losing, I would argue, as big of a piece as you've lost with Trace Terry, but
yeah, I mean, I think the stat still kind of stood. It was 17 out of 18 points that the team scored all year. Trace Terry contributed to going into the UIC match, and I believe that still stands. Yeah, because he scored the goal against UIC, so it definitely stands. Wow. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of production. That's pretty much all of your production that you're going to be losing. So yeah, I mean, and then Andrew Schaefer as well is a big loss. It's the thing that worries me is players potentially transferring out. Again, that's something that you can't. There's no way to tell right now. But if this team is able to retain, some of these pieces, if Mad stays, if Painter ends up staying, if Raiko stays, I think the team is going to have a solid core going into next year. But again, there's just no way to tell in terms of how they're going to do in the recruiting class and how everything's going to go. So,
do you have any thoughts on this as well? I feel like statistically, it's kind of, sitting right there, but also just like impact overall from like what I was able to watch, I felt like Bennett Painter wasn't nearly as present all year as last year. And do you think
that was true.
do you think the departure of Trace Terry makes more room for him to be an active player like that? I mean, do you think he has the ability to kind of just pick up, maybe not exactly the same production, but like to an extent where Terry left off? Or, what's your thought on that one?
I think he does. I think they're definitely going to need someone else alongside of him, whether it's Tyson McCoy or Ryko.
I mean, this year it felt like you really needed like a third guy, and so you definitely need at least a second going into next year.
Yeah, I mean, he still had 5 goals on the year, 13 points total, so he didn't necessarily have a bad year. It's just pinning it next to the year
amazing
that he
of
had
24.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
I would say he has the capacity to definitely have the type of season that Trace Terry had this year. But again, I think part of the team in general was just how much they lost from 2 years ago in terms of losing Blasingame and Bergen and Anaya, who did a lot for the offense as much as they did for the defense in the midfield in terms of creating chances and creating opportunities for Painter and Terry there in the box. So, it's going to depend on the team around him for sure. A player can't score goals by himself,
Right.
So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I think he definitely does have the capacity to be that leader and that main offensive contributor. It's just going to be up to what happens with the rest of the team.
Yeah, definitely just a tough note to end it on for them. A team that was picked, I want to say second in like preseason coaches poll. Is that accurate? Or like somewhere around there?
I believe second or third.
I think they were picked second or third for the Missouri Valley Conference. To miss the tournament entirely is just, I think, very disappointing for a lot of people. Still bright spots, though. In particular, Trace Terry earns all Missouri Valley Conference honors for the 3rd straight season. First team this year and in 2024. Second team in 2023 as a sophomore. Just some other stats about Terry. 4 of his goals on the season, game-winning goals, which was 8th in the nation. 9 points, including 4 goals in the 7 Missouri Valley Conference matches, and a future pro. So, if nothing else from this season, a lot of positive to look back on just Trace Terry's time. Definitely. I jokingly throw in, one of the Falcons of all time for, like a mediocre player or whatever, but truly like one of the best players we've seen in a while for sure.
Yeah, so. I mean, he got drafted last year, so I mean, if he got drafted last year and he had this type of year, he's definitely drafted by. I think the Sounders will. I'm not quite sure how that works, so I'm not gonna comment as to not spread. He got drafted by the Sounders last year, but he deferred to come back. But I would assume he would probably go to Seattle again. I don't know.
Came back to Bowling Green.
Yeah, well, he was a pretty low round draft pick, and he would probably just get sent down to next pro. Yeah. Regardless, which he probably will even this year, which isn't really a bad thing because he's a young player. But he definitely has the capacity to be very good in the MLS in the coming years. So
it just kind of sucks that a team that was like, I really felt coming into this season, like talent-wise, I mean, the 2 strikers are probably, I felt, were the best pair of strikers in the country.
They were. And they still are, yeah.
I felt like just because of the sheer volume the 2 are capable of, I feel like going into this fall, there was kind of, I wouldn't say a consensus because we all love to argue amongst ourselves, but like there was a lot of momentum behind the idea that this team might be the best contender for a conference title that we had this fall. And I think there was a lot of turnover. I think that's maybe a lofty expectation, but like, that's a conversation that was had with as good as Bennett Painter and Trace Terry were and are. Wasn't a ridiculous thought, but just missing it entirely. Even if they go and lose in the first round, I feel like it stings a lot less.
I 100% agree. I remember like the first Zig Zones of the year, Lucas said that this team was going to be his pick to win the MAC, and
yeah.
I mean, that's obviously probably a little biased because he is the beat, but after having such a strong year, after going all the way to the MVC, going all the way to the MVC championship game last year, just losing it, coming into this year, keeping Terry and Painter and Schaefer and a bunch of their other key scorers, it was high expectations, and they just simply did not live up to them this year.
Yeah, part of it, I think, was just the quality of the MVC in general. This year, NIU and Belmont were 2 teams that weren't were expected to be bottom tier of the conference, and I mean they were two of the best teams in the conference.
That is something. Good.
No, and that's just the other thing that worries me a bit in recruiting is it kind of seemed like with this sort of drop, it kind of seems like that's something that's going to be. They're going to have to get higher quality transfers because that's something that Western and UIC and Evansville, these teams all did, is they got very high quality transfers. So that's the standard that they're setting. We're going to have to live up to that standard rather than.
I mean, it's just the reality of soccer in this conference, though, is it not?
Yeah,
I mean, it's not. The Mid-American Conference gets a fun rep in football and basketball at times. I mean, Missouri Valley Conference is no joke.
It's legit.
It's tough sledding, as they unfortunately learned this year. Last stat I want to rat off about Trace Terry, second all time on the BGSU list with his 11 game-winning goals, 69 points in 68 matches for his career.
Yeah,
so
great player.
Definitely
all time.
One of the best Bowling Green players of all time. Certainly one of the best strikers of all time, and hats off to a remarkable BG career from him. Even though, unfortunately, the men's team ended their season pretty disappointingly. That's going to take us to our last sport of the day, getting through all 7, really staying on schedule well, but more importantly, the Zig Zone Equinox, none of the shows will have it divided this small after this one.
This is fun. This is fun doing the round table.
I know. I like the pacing, but often there's less going on. But we will go ahead and last but not least, turn it over to Nathan Burkett here, because I know you're here. You've been clamoring all show for this one. Earning 3 points on the weekend against the Minnesota State Mavericks.
Yeah.
That's a successful weekend. Break it down for me.
Well, I mean, you go into the first game, and everyone was expecting, okay, this is Alex Tracy, one of the best one of the best goaltenders in the entire NCAA. This is a guy who won the CCHA Player of the Year award last year as a goalie. He won the CCHA Goaltender of the Year award. He was a finalist for the Mike Richter Award for the NCAA's best goaltender, and he was he was in top 10 voting for the Hobie Baker Award, which is the MVP of college hockey. So you're expecting a low scoring game, and then BG comes out and scores 2 goals in the first 10 minutes from Connor Levis and Adam Zlunka. So just coming out of the gate and scoring that quickly was huge and was not necessarily expected. We finished the game with a 4-4 draw, thanks to Noah Murnau scoring 2 goals as well. You lose in the shootout, but again, it actually went to extra shots. So not only did you tie the game, you went through overtime scoreless. Through the first 3 shooters, you're able to keep that even tied, and eventually they win on the 4th shot. But again, it was overall a pretty strong performance. I liked what I saw. Then last night you have basically the exact same situation, except instead of it being a high-scoring game, you draw them 1-1, go to the shootout. Brett Foe scores the lone goal in regulation for the Falcons. He scores the shootout winner. He had a strong game. You claim 2 points instead of 1. And it's huge for the Falcons, not only getting those points, but winning in a shootout. Because you go back to the Meiji series last weekend, you lose in the shootout, you lose in overtime, then you hop over to Minnesota State, you lose another shootout. That's not what you want. You're consistently just not winning in these extra frames. So to get a win in the shootout builds this team's confidence, not just going into next weekend against Fair State, but in future overtimes and in future shootouts.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not going to sell Andrew on this one from the way that he felt about the women's soccer team. But if you're competing into, if you lose the shootout and you don't get the extra point, if you're competing into overtime with every team in your conference, I love it. Mm-hmm. You got to be. I don't want to see the teams that'll
not against the bad
win
ones.
Against a good team and then struggle against a bad team. But I mean, if you're competing consistently, mm-hmm. I don't want to see those, the highs and lows playing to the level of your competition every time.
I don't know. Where's Minnesota State? Because I know
they were 16th in the country. They were ranked 16th in the country going into this weekend.
Wow.
So this is not just like a. I know Andrew, you don't necessarily like always getting ties, but you're getting ties against the number 16 team in the country.
And the extra point.
And the extra point. Right now, they're ranked, I think, 6th or 7th in the standings. That's just because they've only played, going into this weekend, they only played 2 conference
Not
games.
every team's even played the same number of series.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say Bemidji has 6 games. Michigan Tech has 4.
I'm not against ties.
No, I know. You're an easy target.
I'm not against ties. I just listen. You want your teams to go out and you want them to win. You want them to leave no doubt. Sort of
Just
thing.
win, baby.
Yeah, just win, baby, win, or whatever the saying is.
I totally understand that, but this is
But
one of
against
those,
that, I did
a
not.
moral-
I don't.
This is a
I'm
team.
not the hockey beat for a reason, but
This
that is
is-
impressive.
This is the reigning CCHA champions since the return to CCHA. They've
did
won.
know that.
They've won 3 of the 4 CCHA championships.
Yeah, they did know.
Number 16 in the country. Again, you have to feel happy with what you saw. One thing I'm gonna bring up though is something I was not happy with, and that is Colmore. He started off the year in Niagara. He had
I'm
a very
glad you
strong
said that
performance.
real quick, just because that was my next thing for you. So you
Okay.
continue.
You know, Colmore coming into the year, we had 2 incoming goalies. I expected Colmore to kind of be that mentor in a way, if you will.
And maybe a bridge guy if
Yeah.
they're good. Then he plays, but then they kind of start to get one.
I was fully expecting him to play about half the games and then have Palmer and Steinman split the rest of the half. So he'll be basically like the mentor, getting a majority of the playing time. He comes in, he starts the year at Niagara. In my opinion, in his first game against Niagara, he had a solid game. He finished the game with a .900 save percentage. He let in 2 goals, but both of those goals were mostly defensive lapses. Not really his fault. You can only ask your goaltender to do so much. Then against Niagara the next night, off game, lets in 4 goals.
I feel like hockey is especially goalie, is such an eye test thing of
Yeah.
what you're seeing when you watch them play. So what do you like? Or is it just like a kind of a feeling sort of thing with more of just like he's not?
Well, again, I feel like
Stats
I
as
think
well.
hockey.
the last weekend in particular, I think pushes it a lot beyond just the vibe check.
How long was
Well,
it
yeah.
before he got benched in the
Well, not-
Minnesota State
not-
game?
in Minnesota State, that's what I'm getting to. Is again, that second game in Niagara, he had an off game, so you're going to give him a bit of a pass because that happens.
Benefit of the doubt.
And then you only play 12:48 minutes in against one of the best teams in the country, number 16. You let in 3 goals and only make 5 saves. And we talk. And
That's
here's
a
the-
rough ratio.
And here's the thing. This is the thing that I really want to get to. Again, in the end, BG made multiple comebacks in that game to force overtime and then shootout, mainly thanks to No Murno scoring 2 goals. But we came out early in this game against a team that we thought that we were going to have to fight the entire time. During the pregame show on Friday, said this was a David versus Goliath kind of situation. And you scored 2 goals early, thanks to Levis and Zlunka. So you're up 2-0, and then your goaltender proceeds to let in 3 goals. So now you're down at the end of the first frame, 3-2. It's kind of a hard pill to swallow. I will give him credit to the second and third goal he let in. They kind of trickled through him. He stopped most of them, or most of it, not the entire situation. So just kind of, but at the same time, it gets to a certain point where you got to make a save, and you can excuse them every once in a while, but it gets to a certain point where you got to make the saves. You got to keep your team in the game.
Yeah, at this point, I think I want to see Steinman pretty much from this point on. He played so well in the second game as well. Was he 25 for 26, right? And
I believe so. Yeah,
in that second game. So
Steinman. I also like Palmer. Both Palmer and Steinman played the majority of the game, or it was Palmer on Friday nights and then Steinman on Saturday nights for the Lake Superior and Bemidji series, and they both played really well. Steinman, though, is going into this weekend, he was statistically the best goaltender on this roster, but it was like really close between him and Palmer. He has basically worked his way into like basically the starting job. He now has a .936 save percentage on the year, 1.75 goals against average, and that's nothing against like Palmer, who has a 2.09 goals against average, .917 save percentage. But Steinman's just really showed out since he's gone here. And the thing is, he started off good, and he's just gotten even better every game. But on that same hand, Colmore on the year, 4.9 goals against average, .804 save percentage. That's not going to cut it, especially if this team wants to go to the CCHA playoffs and do well. That can't be your save percentage.
Yeah, I mean, it as far as I see it right now, it's early enough, and I'm sure Coach Willie, we've kind of talked about this earlier this week. I'm sure Coach Willie's going to, just keep trying things and see what he likes. I think it's valid this early in the season with a rotation that didn't really play these weren't guys that were playing last year. 2 of them weren't even here. You don't expect him to have exactly the answer yet, but it does feel like we're rapidly creeping towards, hey, Steinman's, our go-to guy, and beyond that, we'll see, what Palmer's got. But not a lot of super optimism, inspiring confidence in Colemore's play right now, which is also interesting to me because I feel like he came onto the scene really hot as a freshman, then kind of cooled off last year, and Christian Stover, had a really nice season himself. So I don't know. Is
to
it
put that lightly?
yes, to put it lightly. Christian
Another
Stover was
final
phenomenal. But I mean, do you think Nathan, our expert here, do you think Colmore? Do you expect to see him right the ship at all? Do you think he'll have the chance to? If you had to give your educated guess, what do you think is going to happen with him?
See, it's hard because, again, he played well his rookie season. His freshman year, he was an all-CCHA rookie team. He won the Rookie of the Month twice, and he won the CCHA Goaltender of the Week 3 times in his rookie campaign. That's very solid.
And well-deserved. I mean, he was there. The guy was nails.
Last year, it was a little bit of a more average season. A lot of that because Stover was just, he was Christian Stover. But also a lot of times when Colmore would come in, it would be like if Stover got hurt or something, which I noticed.
Right, the hot hand, but
I noticed that for Colmore, if he started a game, he would be very solid. If he came in relief, he would struggle for like the first 5-10 minutes, and then he would be solid. So again, he's a very solid goaltender. That's why I expected him to play well this year, and it just hasn't happened so far.
3 goals to 5 saves in 12 minutes is
against the best team in the country against the best team in the conference. When
I'm slowly through coming to BG, and now like obviously following the BG hockey team a little bit last season and actually trying to learn the sport a little bit. Even I know that's not a great. That's a really bad ratio.
Well, you got me there.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I do think. I think you got to go with the goalies that are playing well right now. I'm interested to see. I would expect, which I think would be rightful for a head coach to be, like, verbally non-committal on what's coming up next. But
and Coach Willie will never officially commit to a starter.
But I would like to see Steinman get the majority of the play for Ferris State coming up here.
I'm genuinely upset because all I watched of the game yesterday was the Minnesota State game yesterday was the second period, because after that my Midco Sports decided to not work for me and I didn't even get to watch the shootout, which I'm very upset about. I listened to a little bit of Ben Korak, but
shout out Ben Korak.
But he did text me earlier going into that second period that they've struggled so far this season in the second period, and I didn't really notice too much of that in the Minnesota State game. But has that been a trend? Did Ben just make that up, or has that been a trend all season?
I wouldn't say Ben didn't make it up. It's not necessarily fully a trend. It's just it felt like a lot of times they would come out in the first period and they would not necessarily dominate, but they have either play really well or they just play
the momentum into the second.
It feels like they'll either play better than their opponent or they'll play even with their opponent in the first, struggle immensely in the second, and then come out in the third and just play for a tie, basically. Like, not playing like bad, but like make a big comeback is what I'm trying to say. Let's outplay their opponent entirely and get a tie, and then play well in overtime. So again, you got to carry that momentum through 3 periods. So they did that well, in my opinion, both games against Minnesota State.
I mean, 2 overtimes, 1 extra point taken, so 3 overall points for the weekend against a team like Minnesota State. I mean, it's a team that can compete with anyone. Like, that's scary hours. If you get 3 consistent periods in a row, I mean, that's scary, but they're just not quite there yet. But I mean, I think, preliminary standings this early in conference play don't mean anything necessarily. Bowling Green sitting at 3rd right now. How much do we care about that? Not that much. But at the end of the day, you're taking points against teams that matter, and that's significant. And I think just starting off in a really, really good spot for them. What do you think about Ferris State this weekend?
I know a lot of people in the CCHA sphere were a little bit higher on Ferris State than I was going into the year. I thought that they were going to miss the playoffs. I'm going to be honest. They have done better than I thought they would. I thought that Northern Michigan would be outplaying them, and so far Northern Michigan is still winless, while Ferris State has claimed 2 wins.
0-12 and 0, by the way, so not a tie. Just FYI on that
to give credit to Northern Michigan, they have been playing some of the best teams in college hockey, and they've been close. They just have not been able to get a tie out of any of them. But Ferris State this year, in my mind, they haven't played the best. Let's just go through the last 3 weeks. They got swept by Michigan Tech. Those games weren't particularly close. They lost back-to-back games. They got swept again by Lindenwood at home. And Lindenwood, not the best team. They are a independent team, so not they're all right considering as far as independents go. They're probably one of the best independent teams, but still, it's an independent team. They're not that good. You should get at least a win against them, and they lost both games. And then they lose on Friday night to Augustana. Shut them out at home last night. That's pretty impressive. So they definitely have some momentum going into it. Also, one big win they had earlier in the year is they beat the USU 18 team in the exhibition game 5-0. So that's pretty impressive. But they're not a very good team in my opinion. They're probably either 8th or 9th in the country, in the CCHA. So
8th in the country, no.
8th or 9th in the CCHA. So they, in my mind, they're probably just going to be cracking the CCHA playoffs. I know you said you want to see Steinman. I would be okay if you want to give Cole Moore another shot.
I guess in a matchup
team.
like this, because I mean, it's not your second time around with Minnesota State. It's not Bemidji again. It's not Augustana. Those top couple teams.
I would love to see Cole Moore get another shot against this team to see if he can perform, and if he doesn't, then you have to start asking the question: do we keep playing this guy, or do we just turn to Steinman to Palmer?
Right, and it's one thing, there's incidents, there's something happening, and then there's a trend, when it keeps happening. And I do think getting more minutes out of Cole Moore, I think you're right, actually, now that we've discussed it. You do need to see more, I guess, because, see more. But you can't, you can't write the guy off, but at the same time, and you need to know what you're dealing with. If you're pecking orders, Steinman, Palmer, Moore, that's what it looks like maybe right now, but you definitely need to see more, especially with Ferris State. I'm with you there. Henry just turned his mic on. I think he has something to do, but before he does, I just want to go through real quick because you mentioned Northern Michigan's schedule, and this is crazy. They played number 15 UMass twice, lost both of them. Number 16 Ohio State twice, lost both of them. Number 19/20. I don't know why it's slash. I don't know how that works, Nathan.
It's a tie in the rankings, so it's like a point system. So
okay, so basically number 19 Colorado College lost both of them, one in overtime. So I mean, credit to them. Then they played number 1 Michigan State twice, lost both of them. And then they played Augustana, who is currently 4th ranked team in the CCHA, and a good team, lost both of those. They played Michigan Tech twice, who's currently the 2nd ranked team in the CCHA. Lost both of those. So you were not kidding about a ringer of a schedule. And their next 2 are Bemidji State, next 3, Bemidji State, Minnesota State, Bowling Green. They genuinely have a very realistic chance of going to 0-18 and opening conference play 0-10. And they went to overtime with a ranked team. Yeah. That's absurd. That is one of the hardest schedule stretches I've seen.
Also, their goaltending is pretty solid. Their one goaltender in their first week against UMass, I can't remember who it was at this exact moment. He had I think he finished the game with over 60 saves in one game, and he set all kinds of school records for them in just one game, because it was I think they lost that game obviously, but they faced 70 shots and he made more than 60. So goaltending is good. They just haven't been able to score goals.
Yeah, that'll be one to watch. Really seeing the team resolve the goaltender situation.
I just want to ask you, because it seems like the CCHA is going to be a lot of fun this year, just in terms of how many good teams there are. Mm-hmm. Is there? I know Michigan Tech's played really well. Is there a team that has stood out to you that's been very well? That's done very well and that's kind of boosting themselves up this year.
Well, Minnesota State's number 1, obviously, but
Minnesota State.
Honestly, the way I look at the CCHA, because shout out to Tech Hockey Guide. We have a weekly voting, and I'm one of the voters actually. I'm BG's representative, if you will. Sick. It's a weekly power ranking, and my voting for that, it's Ferris State and Northern Michigan, in my opinion, they're battling for 8th and 9th. Like, they're kind of a step below. Minnesota State's almost always going to be number 1. They're in that tier. And then, honestly, 2nd through about, what would that be, 7th? Changes week to week based on who plays who. So, like, honestly, like, Bemidji, in my opinion, has done very well early this year. This, depending on who plays who, it could be any of those teams. So, like, in my opinion, Minnesota State's the favorite to win the CCHA.
As it should be.
Northern Michigan and Ferris State are going to be battling just to make it into the playoffs. But the rest of the teams, in terms of seeding, it could go to anyone. This depends on who gets hot.
Cool.
Love it. I love a wide open conference.
Yeah.
Feels like anything can happen. It feels something I appreciate about the Missouri Valley Conference and the CCHA, both of the non-MACs that BG has programs in, is they still they have that feel. You know what I mean? You know the feel of a Tuesday night MACtion game where a one-win team can still knock off like the title favorite in that conference in a 45-42 game when it's a blizzard. That sort of, you know, those sorts of things. I mean, crazy things happen like that all the time, and I feel like the CCHA has that kind of potential. Maybe not so much at the bottom, but you know that middle of the pack is just.
I love the way the CCHA is, just because it just feels like college hockey. Just like going up to the border in between, you know, of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. You know, every month. It's like it just makes it a lot more fun for me, rather than playing, you know, the same old MAC teams that they play in every other sport. It's like
it is exciting too, having like fresh programs that are maybe like D2 in football. Even, you know, Minnesota State's one of them. Yeah, Northern Michigan, that sort of thing. It's fun seeing different fan bases, different areas that you don't get to explore in those other sports.
Like there isn't really any other reason to go up to
the entire
Sault Ste.
northern
Marie, Michigan,
Midwest,
or Marquette, Michigan,
what are you
or
doing
Mankato, Minnesota.
Mankato, other than hockey time, baby.
Other than hockey, yeah.
Bowling Green will continue their hockey season, returning back home when they take on Ferris State, the Bulldogs, this Friday and Saturday, November 14th and 15th. As always, Falcon Media Sports Network will have a call of that on WBGU 88.1 FM for the weekend, because weekends are hockey nights. We will keep you up to date with that on the social platforms as well. Check out BG Falcon Media on YouTube for re-uploads of any content there. And as always, bgfalconmedia.com, our website for all of our written content. That's going to do it for our sports coverage for today. And so I've been waiting for this one. I thought about this earlier this week just because my answer to it was dumb, but I thought really, really funny. And so my question for the teams specifically this fall. So you can talk about the teams we talked about today, but realistically, I want to do the 5 we talked about last week. So women's soccer, men's soccer, football, volleyball, hockey. Of those 5 teams, if you could take one athlete, current athlete or a former athlete in their sport that you've seen, whatever, and put it on this year's team, who would it be and why? And I want you to be a little more creative than just throwing Harold Fannin on to the football team.
That's a good question.
I want you to think about that a little bit. My answer is a cop-out, but it's because I think it's funny, and it's not just because of like any perceived discrepancies, whatever. But my pick is you take Trace Terry and you throw him onto this women's team because he's just going to sail shots. Not about him being, you know, bigger body, if he's faster, whatever. I'm not talking about that, but just purely the volume and like some of the ridiculous takes he has, some of the touches in the box he has. You put Trace Terry onto that team, and that's crazy. So that's my answer.
is it so taking a player from one BG team and putting on the other BG team?
Yes.
Or is it alumni on the current team?
Well, it can be an alumni if you want. My brain is more in the mind of like grabbing a player from one team to another. Okay. Like currently.
I think Cole Moore as like a men's soccer goalkeeper would be pretty funny.
That's huge. That's true.
It's current player onto another current roster.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know. I'll take any basketball player, men's basketball player, put him on volleyball.
I think there is a very hot take here. I think Amanda Otten would be deceptively good at a number of the other sports, just because of how athletic she is, her size compared to like peers, you know, height. Like
Amanda Otten would be a good basketball player.
She'd be a good basketball player. Yeah,
6'3".
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna take
shooter too.
Cole Moore and put him on one of the basketball teams because he's so tall.
Just for the height.
Yeah.
Just another guy inside the post.
6'6".
Yeah, he's tall. Yeah, I mean,
I'm noticing nobody's picking a football player. You don't want Drew Pine at point guard?
Like,
No, he don't.
Man,
Not
he can just
really.
beat The Rock.
well, like I'm not gonna pick anyone
he
from
could just-
anyone. I'm probably not gonna pick people from other sports to play hockey because, like, first off, you gotta learn how to skate.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
So you gotta keep in mind, like, on top of athletic ability, you gotta learn how to skate. So I'm not
I'm
gonna do that.
putting Amanda Otten on the women's basketball court.
Yeah, I think RJ Garcia would be an awesome soccer player just because some fast soccer
that.
players are just so cool. They're so fun to watch. I would put RJ Garcia on.
I
the soccer
actually,
team.
just because of the way he's been playing, especially recently too, I wouldn't mind seeing Austin Dendy on the pitch just because he's big. I mean, imagine, like 6'2", 220.
He's like a wider
midfielder.
Trace Terry.
Shout out, BG Club Rugby. Take Lampron, put him on the rugby team.
Oh, I would put Gideon Lampron into any sport happily. I would love watch that man play volleyball.
Put him on the hockey rink. That dude would be a unit.
No, I'd like some of the taller men's basketball players, like with how tall the net is for volleyball, could stand and block.
Well, and
They would have
here's
to
my
leave the
question
ground.
though. I'm thinking of this more in terms of if you level the playing field. So, if you're putting
Oh.
Gideon Lampron on a volleyball court, how tall is Lampron? I don't know off the top of my head.
6'2",
If he's in like the middle of the average height for football players, then imagine the rest of the volleyball field is like, half of them are taller than him, half of them are shorter, approximately that, So he's not just like, because, you look at the volleyball court, you've got some
Well, you could
unicorns
just-
like
you could
Amanda
just
Otten.
say-
Lampron's only 6 foot.
I wouldn't. Amanda Otten is kind of a unicorn.
I'm saying Gideon Lampron's still going to be tall for a volleyball player. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
imagine if the rest of the field is appropriately upscaled. I think the physical unit
just
that he is,
skill.
he's still imposing his will. You know what I mean? That's the kind of athlete that he is. That's how I think about it.
Yeah. How high can he jump? What's his vert?
Henry doesn't have his vert on speed.com.
I don't
Henry.
know what his vert
Come
is.
on, Henry.
Come on,
It's probably
Docking
good.
your
We
pay.
talked about
Probably
this. We
good.
talked about this.
Henry, we're docking your pay.
It's at least like it's at least a little bit.
Yeah, I
That's-
would say
that's my
probably
estimate.
At least a little bit. The vertical for Gideon Lampron, and I think that's how we're gonna wrap up today's show.
At least
Gideon
he-
Lampron, he can definitely jump. How high can he jump? He
don't
can
know.
sure jump.
We'll have that next week.
We'll have that next week for you. Gideon Lampron's
That'll be a
vertical.
feature story.
That's going to do it for us here this week on the Zig Zone, though. Shout out to Henry Costco, Andrew Smith, and Nathan Burkett for being here and sharing their expertise. As always, check out bgfalconmedia.com, not only for the connections to Falcon Radio and WBGU 88.1 FM to tune into live broadcasts, but as well as the written content for all of Falcon athletics going on. And check out BG Falcon Media on YouTube, as well as Falcon Media Sports Network on all other relevant social platforms, and at BG_FMSN on Twitter X. That's going to do it for us here from the Coolin Center studio. For Henry Costco and Andrew Smith and Nathan Burkett, I'm Holden Ruck saying good night and Izzy.